My name is Michael Cirino, and I am the founder of House of Attention. We are a hospitality group that brings passionate audiences together and provides them with really big and unique ideas for them to enjoy and participate in. Sometimes those passionate audiences know about their passion ahead of time, and sometimes this is the first time they're touching it, and we love it either way, whatever your depth of experience is. Today I'm talking with Neil Markey, founder of Beckley Retreats, a psychedelic wellness, and what's the right way to say it actually, Neil? How would you describe what you do in your relationship to hospitality?
We call our programs more like integrative health programs. So we're teaching people some of these basic well-being practices like meditation and mindful movement. Everything has a grounding in science, but it's stuff that you might not get recommended by your family doctor because there's not a pill to be sold or a business case for it. But we try and teach good, healthy habits, and then we do give people, controlled psychedelic experiences in beautiful locations. So there's a hospitality component too.
The thing for me as somebody on the outside watching my partner go through the experience the first time was your attention to what I call the user journey or user experience, CX kind of way, however you want to slide it. When you look at it off of a website, if you look out of it outside of a marketing funnel, and you talk about guest experience design, you guys really think about it from 6-8 weeks before the guest is on site to their entire time on property to 4 weeks after property. And I say that because I've been interviewing a lot of people around the future of where hospitality is going, and no one is looking at that level of guest interaction yet. I know that you're doing it with real intention, but everyone says they have that intention, but they don't have the same kind of foundational need that you do. They all aspire to it, but I know that it's a foundational component that allows you to do what you do as well as you do. How do you see that? What's the language that you use to describe that basket that you create so people feel comfortable and are able to, have that neuroplasticity and be present?
Yeah, it was kind of this serendipity. When we set out to start Beckley Retreats was right before COVID, and it ended up being, I think, quite good for us. We had always wanted to do the digital preparation and the digital follow-up. And then COVID got everybody ready to be comfortable being on Zooms and kind of engaging in that way. And I think it allows us to, give people such a better experience that is more lasting. If you just go away for a few days, it's just limited what you can do. But now with technology, you can have a relationship with your guests before and after. And, when we looked at our program, we took a multidisciplinary approach, and we really said, how do we help people thrive? And you need to get people to build new habits. Ultimately, like the mystical or the psychedelic experience, the in-person experience is really important, but you really need them to live differently. And when you look at adult learning or habit change science or some of the research around group dynamics, it takes a while for that to happen. It takes months. And so we felt that when we have the digital before and the digital after, we're able to stay with people for longer and help them build those habits. That's ultimately what we want. That's what's going to sustain the benefit. And then, in the prep, all of our programs are done in groups. We really believe in the therapeutic nature of the group. People were pack animals, and a lot of times individuals will show up more for others than they will for themselves. And there's science around this. And there's a way that you can curate groups and get them together and create an environment where there's a lot of trust and a lot of vulnerability. And so, extending that timeline, we think, helps a lot. And there are risks, and doing like a good proper preparation and a good proper follow-up helps mitigate some of the risks as well. So it's better outcomes and lower downside.
And that to me is the need that you have. When I talk to somebody who owns a fancy hotel, there is no risk for them to not do this. The upside for them is better user engagement. And I believe that is a fallacy. I believe that you as a practitioner has the same responsibility as that fancy pants hotel or that destination like Disney or the World Cup or any of those people. Because if you don't, as the host, think about those things, how are you supposed to integrate yourself into a community? How are you supposed to create a smaller or large community to have that bubble exist where that hospitality can provide safety? And what I keep hearing over and over again is hospitality is about placemaking, not about comfort, and it's about safety and not about pampering. And that, I'm going to use a Joe Pine word here. I don't know if you ever read Joe Pine and the Experience Economy, but his new book is very akin to what we're talking about right now. When you have that good experience that creates safety, you have the opportunity for transformation, right? You are a very literal provider of transformation. But there is a lot of softer versions of transformation that can happen. And again, it's a need for you and it's a nice to have for someone else. How do we bridge that gap to make a future where this is kind of part of the active gathering, whether it be at the intensity level that you require, at least people are thinking about it, making sure that there's some kind of dynamic here?
It just depends on the organization and what they want. Like for a hotel, maybe they're not trying to create a positive group dynamic amongst the guests, and people are coming as individuals and leaving as individuals, and so maybe there's less of a need or a case there. But we're trying to create community, and we're trying to give people an environment where they can practice some of the relational skills that we actually think is fundamental to what some of the symptoms we're seeing out there in the world, like the loneliness and the disconnection and people feeling like they aren't part of this larger whole. We're trying to help fix that. We feel like that's a kind of fundamental part of wholeness, and feeling well is feeling part of a group. And it's unfortunate that the way we live today is like super transactional and it's a lot of surface level interaction. But we have a way of helping people practice getting beyond that. And just the openness with others and seeing others, realizing that it's not just you that has all these things going on, that it's part of being human. There's real benefit in that. You leave feeling whole, and then you can go back home and you can practice that with the other meaningful relationships in your life. You can practice vulnerability. These are all skills that you can build. These are all things that you can work on.
Your point of view of wellness, this to me is what modern wellness as a part of hospitality also is starting to look like. Again, what is the edge of transformation? How do we bring people to a place of comfort with the safety and the security of their environment so that they can then take a risk and challenge themselves? I believe the word is usagi, but maybe I'm saying that incorrectly. But so next to Dharma, right, you have this idea of like, this is my purpose. There's this process at a temple in Japan where they get together once a year and everybody runs around in a circle. And they run around inside the temple all day. I'm talking like 18 hours, 20 hours straight. This superhuman thing happens because the community comes together to have a superhuman experience, to feel what it's like to go beyond what is possible as a group, only because the group is there. Yes. And what's really interesting about that is people go on this experience and they feel breakthrough in other parts of their life. And I think a lot of what this new challenge for wellness is to say, yeah, I'll treat the physical person. I'll make your muscles feel nice. I'll put the needles in and let the energy come out. We'll sit here and we'll be in the sauna and the cold plunge. We'll eat the extra protein. But we also need to fix the emotional, physical, mental structure. We also have to prepare ourselves for these things in a more holistic way. And that might require me to ride this bicycle for 100 miles instead of 10. This might require me to run all day in a circle or be in this cold water way longer than I think. And it's okay if I do this because the Ritz-Carlton is the one that's asking me. And I say the Ritz-Carlton because we're talking about hotels in a silly way, right? But whoever that validator is the one. Here at Beckley Retreats is the provider of the services, but it's really anyone. Come here, have the outrageous wellness, and trust us. Climb the mountain. Our Sherpas will help you get up and back. You know what I mean? You guys do that very well in that way. And what are some of the other components besides internally focusing psychedelic wellness thing that has kind of resonated inside that community? What are the other components in that multidisciplinary wellness experience that you create and you think are important to make sure that the person is fed and nourished while they're going through this transformation?
Good question. So the different components of the program. And there's been research around this too, like how to create high functioning, high performance teams. And I feel like I've seen this a couple different places in my career where it was done really well. One was in the Ranger Regiment, like a special operations unit. And we were regularly doing really hard things together. And when you go through hard things together, like climbing mountains, something happens, you build this trust and you see each other in these broken down states. And there's something about being human where that really matters. And then also when I worked in the corporate world, I was a consultant and we worked in these really small teams and it was also like very intense. We worked really, really long hours, but you get to know people at a level that you don't in an environment where you're not getting pushed to your limits. So I think that that's really important. And then on our programs, there's a bunch of different like frameworks to think about. One that we use is all this work is relational. So you have a relationship to yourself, how you view yourself, how you perceive yourself, how you talk to yourself, how gentle you are or not to yourself. You have relationships with others, and the close circle is really important, and there's tools to look at those and practice relationships. But then there's also this relationship to the greater whole, or to nature, which is like, to us,
Yes.
very important. We're part of nature. We used to spend all of our time in nature. Now the way we live, we're also often very disconnected from nature, but it's real and measurable. You know, like, we know that when you're in a natural environment and your eyes perceive the curved lines of the trees and the bushes is different than when you're in a city and it's sharp lines. When it's sharp lines, your body perceives more threat. And so there's so much science around how important the environment is and that relationship with nature is. Another framework that we use is mind, body, heart, spirit. So the mind can be really chatty and can kind of run around, and there's tools that you can use to settle the mind and make the mind more clear, like meditation. That's foundational to our program. There's also learning, understanding the mechanics of what's going on in the body can be really helpful for people, understanding why they're doing these tools. So we teach the mechanisms. We want people to learn and understand, and that's really interesting for people. The health of the body, what you're putting into your body. You know, our programs are thoughtful about the meals. We also move the body, so yoga, mindful movement, walking, stretching, being aware. And there's things that you can do to practice gratitude. It's giving, it's putting yourself in other people's shoes. And then there's this spiritual component, which for some is very religious, you know, like Christian or Muslim, or for many it can just be nature. It can be that connection to nature. The psychedelic experience is part of the program that fits pretty clearly in that bucket in terms of spiritual connection, because you have a direct experience with this thing. Some people would call it God, some people would call it the field, some people would call it the oneness. Whatever you call it, I don't think it really matters, but you can't deny it once you've had that experience. And so our program looks across all those buckets and tries to give people exposure to different techniques and tools that like help develop a better relationship with those things.
I know that psychedelics creates a neuroplasticity, a moment, right? 30, 65 days, something like that. Whether it be in microdose levels over a sustained period, or whether it be in heroic dose levels and these kind of impact points that you're talking about. But the encouragement of transformation during that neuroplasticity, I think you're doing it from a place of growth. And when we remove that self-focus, I love this idea when it's applied to almost any reason why passionate audiences gather. This ability to say, we're getting together for the World Cup. It's happening right now, right? We're surrounded by it. It's a huge passionate audience that's self-selecting. They are all going to places and they can't control the what that they're doing. Everybody has to do the same what, but they can choose how they do it. They can choose who they do it with, and they can choose the components that they focus their attention on. And then after that experience, they have a new openness to that community that can either be like, that was an amazing experience, it's reoriented my things. I think all good experiences should drive people to have that kind of breakthrough if possible, but you guys have a very unique hammer to knock it over the edge. How do you see that translate to other kinds of hospitalities, knowing that you have that specific methodology? Can you see what I'm saying here? Is there a way that your specialty in doing this, how do you pull it outside of your specialty to apply this kind of reflexive nature and neuroplasticity into to other type of gatherings and human experiences?
Yeah, the neuroplasticity thing is definitely interesting, and I would say the science there is emerging, but there definitely is some reasons to believe that after these higher dose experiences, the body, central nervous system, brain is in this state of increased potentiality for change. So everything's kind of shook up a little bit, which is good. And most people after these experiences go home and they report, I feel more present. I feel less like my husband used to do these things and it drove me mad, but now they don't drive me as crazy and I can see it a little bit different, like have this different relationship. I know I need to meditate as opposed to having to force myself to meditate. So all these, I feel more grateful, like all these like really positive things, which is good. But what we've found, and I think is pretty agreed upon in the field, is that if you don't take that opportunity to kind of consciously put in some new ways of being or acting, then you're going to end up going back to the mean, because by the time you're a young adult, there's just a lot of momentum. There's a lot of, these habits are pretty deeply worn in, and you're going to revert back to that. But in that window after where there's this potential for change, you can tell people, hey, look, if you just take this seriously for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it was really hard for you to meditate before, I get it. But for this period of time after, just do it every day. It's more likely to stick. And then it's the habit formation that is going to maintain the benefit.
100%.
Practicing having hard conversations and having that become kind of just a normal muscle. That's where the real beauty is. I mean, the mystical experience is fascinating and it's really helpful for many. But if you don't consciously do anything with it, more than likely it's just going to kind of be a one-off thing. And so how does that apply to other experiences like for wellness and stuff? I think organizations, they should really try to help people after those experiences to develop some new habits. It's like, don't leave it on the table. Use it as a tool where you've activated the body and take a chance to put some new things in place, put some new wiring in there.
I like the permission that people have to give you to kind of put them into community. And I think a lot of other situations or communities that have been pre-created, like we're soccer fans or whatever it is, the idea of picking that group of people, but you guys assemble teams, and then those teams of people who go through these cohorts, they usually stay connected for an extended period of time. Which to me is, again, one of these things is when you do difficult things with people and you share a difficult experience, whether that be running a marathon or challenging yourself, right? You do a challenging thing together and you check in with each other regularly and you have that process, you end up realizing how valuable it is to have those things. And I think you said it at the beginning of our conversation. A lot of that's been stripped out of modern society in the Western world. And a lot of these wellness practices to me are about bringing that community back through yoga instruction, through breath work, getting together, through having these multi-person experiences so that it's not it's a shared burden for all of us, right? Because we all have our idiosyncratic bits. I personally think everything you just talked about is applicable to almost every type of human gathering. And whether it be for neuroplasticity's sake or for the sake of making memories, if we can think about that thing and then reconnect with each other over and over again in those little micro ways that it requires, then that impact on our entertainment value, on the pleasure that we get from these decisions that we make, becomes exponentially higher, and we get to be completely in control of its creation instead of waiting for it to be circumstantially brought to us if everything's correct or if we solve the problems correctly. We get to be able to conjure it up or ask our community to be like, listen to this thing I'm making. It's my happiness again. Can you help me get this happiness in place?
It's such a fascinating time to be working in this kind of experience transformation world. And I think if you look at the trends that are happening with technology, and it's going to be even more important. People are going to be even more disconnected and are going to need thoughtful experiences to help bring the community back together. And on our programs, people are coming from all over the place, and then they meet each other on the programs, and then they do stay in touch. And some people stay in touch for years, like you become friends. I think it'll be even more optimal when the laws allow to be able to have these centers that are outside major metropolitan areas, and then you can have people from the same city go have these transformational experiences together, but then have relationships after the experience
in community,
in between, take care of each other. That's how we
100%.
Used to live, and I think we're heading that way. I love these community hot cold plunge concepts, and they're all over the place. I think they're really good.
I recently just bought my first home with my wife. We've been living in the city for forever. We moved somewhere a little bit out of the city. And the first thing we wanted to do was to create a sauna. So we built a little wood-fired sauna. We're putting a cold plunge in, and we opened it up to the community so they could come and use it so we could have this thing. And because it's wood-fired and not electric, you bring over 2 logs and all of a sudden the thing's 185 degrees. And I think that the thing is really interesting because there's a little bit of work that's required. You got to chop the wood. So if you want a sauna, come over and chop some wood, or let me borrow your axe, or there's this little tiny components that bring us together, but then we also get to be naked. And I think there's a literal physical thing about being naked together in that hot box also that's like, there's not any clothes between us. And I know it sounds silly to say that out loud, but the safety that the space builds to allow that to happen, and then repeat it over and over again in a small group of people. We're not talking thousands here, right? We're talking less than 1,000 people in my community. And maybe I get to interact with them 4 times a year instead of twice. And that is enough to make this community start to gel a little bit. And again, a sauna is a silly thing. It wasn't a lot of money. It was some weekends of hard labor, but it's fun to sit inside of it, to have built it with people together, to have made the project with the community, and then to enjoy the project with the community on a cycle. What other things can we do like that and call it leisure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What other things can we do like that build a community, but call it sports or entertainment or whatever the things are that we give ourselves permission to bring our bodies and our friends' bodies together?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing more and more kind of pop up small stuff, but I think like group meditations or meditating on your own is great. Meditating in a group is even better. Meditating in a group in nature is that's it. And group fitness, I think group community work where you're giving back or cleaning up trash or all those things. When you do them together, you get so much more out of it.
We got a couple minutes left. I'd love to ask you some quick questions that maybe you can give me like one-liner answers on, or some thoughts just to get in your head. I'm talking about a physical place now. What is a physical place you've been to recently that you've been like, this is crazy? Or whether it's in a fancy city or in the middle of the woods, right? Like, where is like a literal GPS point, or I opened the door in this room made me just go, wow, I'm in a place. You know what I mean?
I mean, where we do programs in Jamaica, I'm a little biased, but Good Hope is this 2,000-acre horse farm, which is just extraordinarily beautiful. And when you're there, you're away from everything. It's far off in the distance, so you're not...
Yes. I'm drinking out of this coffee mug today that's from Mexico, but that's only because I did not wash the mug this morning that was made at Good Hope that I normally drink my coffee out of every day. So to have, again, like this idea of, media experience artifacts, your location has a place on it that makes artifacts out of the literal earth nearby. Yes. And I didn't even get to go to Good Hope, but that cup is what I hold every day to remind myself of that, right? And have that connection to that earth a third of the world away, which I think is super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to come
That's
down.
also a cool mug too. It's got like a really nice grip. That guy's got a real interesting approach to making pottery.
David Pinto, he's a legend.
What's a dream project that you're thinking about, maybe that's not directly in line with what you're doing, like something that may be a little bit different, right? Like one of the guys that we work with, he's a loud Italian from Long Island, and I think he really wants to open up a red sauce joint. You know what I mean? He just wants to be able to serve spaghetti every single night, take all of his superpowers from everything and put it into spaghetti. Do you ever just dream about something? I know you're an entrepreneur, so every day you live your dream, so to speak, but like, is there something adjacent or outside of it that's in a different part of Neil's world?
Well, my family's got a business that does ornamental railings, sculpture, and art, and we're building a sculpture garden up at my family's property that's going to be open to the community. And it's in honor of my mom. My mom passed a year and a half ago, and she loved having kids around. And so, we're working on that. We actually just built a big mushroom as kind of one of the main pieces. I love that. And I think if I wasn't doing this, if I wasn't doing retreats, I'd be doing something in landscape architecture. I think ponds and waterfalls and amazing greenery is just super inspiring to me. So
I love that. Yeah, and again, that type of placemaking to me is so fundamental to hospitality, right? Like, place is one of the core principles you need to have when you're trying to be intentional. And giving the earth soft polishes or asking it to evolve in a way over a couple hundred years is a really interesting structure. I live in a place that has huge boulders for all my foundation, right? And you can't dig anything out. You have to literally find the boulder, you have to dig the edges out, and you have to pull the boulder out, right? Because it's that kind of rock. And you realize it's a big pile of gravel all the way down.
Yeah.
And we're here with different levels of permission. The gravel gets bigger and smaller, but like you move one, the rest of it just starts to move slowly. And it's really cool when you can get them in the right place and the trees start to flourish and the grass starts to grow between them and you start seeing the chipmunks everywhere. But we're middle-aged men. This is the kind of stuff old people talk about. And I got to say, I'm here for it. I'll stay. Yeah, I'll stay up until midnight and listen to music and dance all night too. But I will definitely wake up with the sunrise and put my hands in the dirt and have that bird song at the same time. Neil, it was great chatting with you, man. I always love connecting, and your perspective on hospitality is beyond the cutting edge. So I appreciate you being out there and inspiring us.
Thank you for having me,
Thanks.
brother.